Adeleke turned to his mother, his face dark with a rage she had never seen before. "The woman you want me to marry has kidnapped Amara. If Amara dies, I will never forgive you." The queen froze, her teacup rattling in the saucer. Adeleke didn't wait. He brought out his phone and dialed the commissioner of police directly. "Commissioner, this is Prince Adeleke. Track Simi Balogun's phone location immediately. It is a matter of life and death." "Hey there, pour a cup of tea, get comfy, and let your heart listen. The story's about to start. Welcome to Tales Vibe, where laughter and lessons flow together. If you love a good story, don't forget to like this video. Subscribe for more tales every week. And please tell us where you're watching from in the comments. We'd love to know where our story family is tuning in from." Amara sat on a thin woven mat in the corner of a small, cramped room in Adeleke. Her hands were stained black with charcoal, moving quickly over a piece of torn cardboard. She was sketching the face of a market woman she had seen earlier that morning. Drawing was her only escape, the only time she felt free. Behind her, a harsh, dry cough broke the silence. Amara dropped the charcoal immediately and rushed to the old mattress on the floor where Mama Amara lay. Her mother looked pale, her breathing shallow. Amara poured a little water into a plastic cup and helped her mother drink. "Sorry, Mama," Amara whispered. She checked the medicine bottle on the small wooden table. It was completely empty. Panic rose in her chest. She opened the biscuit tin where they kept their savings, but inside there were only a few crumpled Naira notes. It was barely enough for food, let alone the expensive cough syrup the chemist had prescribed. Amara looked at her sketches piled in the corner. She had to try and sell them again today, even though people on the mainland were too busy trying to survive to buy art. Miles away, across the third mainland bridge on Victoria Island, Prince Adeleke sat at a long dining table made of glass. The room was large and cold, filled with servants who stood silently against the walls. In front of him was a feast of yam, eggs, and tea, but he had no appetite. Across from him sat Queen Ronk, looking impeccable in her lace attire. She was scrolling through her tablet, not looking at him. "The date must be set by next week, Adeleke," Queen Ronk said, her voice sharp. "Chief Balogun is getting impatient. Simi is waiting for your proposal." Adeleke clenched his jaw, his grip tightening on his fork. "I have told you, Mother. I will not marry Simi. She is rude, selfish, and she treats people like they are beneath her." Queen Ronk finally looked up, her eyes hard. "This is not a romance novel, Adeleke. This is real life. The merger with the Balogun Group is vital for our family's shipping business. Simi is from a good home. She is educated, and she fits our status. You have a duty to this crown. I am not a business asset to be traded," Adeleke shouted, slamming his hand on the table. The servants flinched, but the queen did not blink. Adeleke stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the marble floor. "I cannot breathe in this house." "Sit down," the queen commanded. "You cannot run away from your responsibilities." Adeleke ignored her. He stormed out of the dining room and grabbed his car keys from the hallway table. He needed air. He needed to be anywhere but here. Outside, his personal driver, Sunday, rushed toward the black SUV. "Good morning, Prince. Let me get the door." "Stand back, Sunday," Adeleke said, pushing past him. "I am driving myself today." "But sir, the king gave strict orders." "I don't care," Adeleke snapped. He jumped into the driver's seat, started the engine, and sped toward the heavy iron gates. The security guards hurried to open them. Adeleke drove fast, leaving the luxury of the island behind, desperate to find a place where no one knew his name. Adeleke gripped the steering wheel tight. The noise of the city faded as he drove further away from the busy streets of Victoria Island. He took a turn toward a shortcut that led to the outskirts of Ape. He just wanted silence. He wanted to forget about the merger, Simi, and his mother's cold eyes. The road here was narrow and untarred, surrounded by tall grass and thick trees on both sides. It was the perfect place to be alone. Suddenly, a yellow commercial bus swerved out from a side track and blocked the road completely. Adeleke slammed on his brakes. Dust rose around the car as it screeched to a halt just inches from the bus. His heart pounded. He reached for the gear stick to reverse, but he saw two men in dirty t-shirts jump out from the bush behind him. Two more men stepped out of the yellow bus in front. They held locally made guns and cutlasses. "Come down now," one of the men shouted, hitting the bonnet of Adeleke's expensive SUV with the flat side of a machete.
Oya!
"Open the door." Adeleke froze. This was not a random robbery. They had been waiting for a car like his. He looked at the lock button. If he stayed inside, they would break the glass and drag him out. If he came out, they might take him for ransom. The leader, a man with a scar across his cheek, pointed a gun at the driver's window. "I will count to 3, the man roared. Adeleke made a split-second decision. He unlocked the door, pushed it open violently to hit the man standing closest, and sprinted toward the thick bush on the left side of the road. "Catch him. Don't let him run," the leader yelled. Adeleke ran faster than he ever had in his life. Branches scratched his face and tore his expensive shirt. He heard heavy footsteps crashing through the dry leaves behind him. Pow! A loud gunshot rang out. Adeleke felt a sharp, burning sting in his upper left arm. He stumbled but did not fall. The pain was hot and sudden, but fear pushed him forward. He grabbed his bleeding arm and dove deeper into the forest, zigzagging between the trees. The voices of the men grew fainter as he moved further away from the road. He ran until his lungs burned, and his legs felt heavy. Finally, his vision blurred, and he collapsed behind a large tree trunk, gasping for air, his white shirt soaking red with blood. Silence returned to the forest, broken only by the chirping of insects. A few hundred meters away, Amara was bending down, picking up dry sticks for firewood. The cooking gas had finished 2 days ago, and they had no money to refill the cylinder. As she reached for a thick branch near a cluster of bushes, she saw a flash of white fabric stained with red. Amara froze. Her mother had always warned her to mind her business, especially in Lagos where trouble could swallow you whole. She took a step back, intending to run home, but a low, painful groan stopped her. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She couldn't leave a human being to die like a dog. Cautiously, she pushed the tall grass aside. There lay a man, his expensive clothes torn and dirty. He was clutching his arm, his eyes squeezed shut in pain. "Oga," Amara whispered, kneeling beside him. "Can you hear me?" Adeleke opened his eyes slowly. Everything was blurry. He saw a young woman with worried eyes looking down at him. "Help, please," he rasped, his voice barely a whisper. Amara looked at the blood soaking his shirt. He needed a doctor, but the nearest clinic was miles away, and they would demand a deposit before even touching him. She had to take him to her house. "Oga, sorry. I will help you," she said. She dropped her bundle of firewood and wrapped his good arm around her shoulder. "Try to stand. Biko, try." Adeleke gritted his teeth and pushed himself up. He was heavy, and Amara almost buckled under his weight. Step by step, they moved slowly through the bush path. Every movement sent a jolt of pain through Adeleke, but Amara kept talking to him, telling him to stay awake. When they finally reached the small, zinc-roofed house, Mama Amara was sitting by the door, shelling melon seeds. She dropped the bowl when she saw them. "Amara, who is this? What have you done?" Mama cried, her hands shaking. "Mama, please open the door."
He was shot.
"We have to help him," Amara pleaded, struggling to keep Adeleke upright. They managed to get him onto the worn-out sofa in the parlor. Adeleke lost consciousness immediately. Mama Amara, despite her fear, switched into survival mode. She rushed to the backyard and returned with some leaves and a small bottle of local antiseptic. "Boil water, Amara. Fast," Mama ordered. Together, they cut off his sleeve. Mama Amara cleaned the angry wound with hot water and applied the crushed herbs to stop the bleeding. She bound his arm with a clean strip of cloth from an old wrapper. "He looks like a big man, Amara," Mama whispered fearfully, looking at his gold wristwatch. "If he dies here, police will finish us." "He won't die, Mama," Amara said, wiping sweat from Adeleke's forehead. "God won't let him die." Adeleke opened his eyes slowly. The ceiling above him was low and stained with watermarks, very different from the gold-trimmed plaster in his bedroom at the palace. A rusted standing fan rattled in the corner, blowing warm air against his skin. He tried to sit up, but a sharp pain shot through his left arm. "Easy, Oga. Don't move too much." Adeleke turned to see Amara walking in with a plastic tray. She placed a bowl of warm pap and bean cake on the small table beside him. "Where am I?" he asked, his voice dry. "You are safe," Amara said softly. "This is my mother's house. You have been sleeping for 2 days." Adeleke touched the bandage on his arm. He remembered the gunshots, the running, and the fear. "Thank you," he said, looking into her eyes. "You saved me." "It was God, not me," she replied shyly. "But you need to eat to get your strength back." Adeleke looked at the simple food. In the palace, he would have rejected it, but now he was starving. As he ate, Mama Amara entered the room, leaning on the wall for support. "Oga, we don't know who attacked you," Mama said, her voice weak but serious. "But this is Lagos. If you have enemies, it is better you stay inside until you are strong." Adeleke nodded. He knew he couldn't tell them he was a prince. If the news spread that the heir to the throne was hiding in a slum, the killers would find him, or people might try to ransom him. "My name is Adeleke," he lied. I am just a clerk in the city. I don't know why those men attacked me." "It is okay, Adeleke," Mama said. "You are welcome here." Over the next 3 days, the small house became Adeleke's world. He saw how hard Amara worked. She woke up before dawn to fetch water, cooked, cleaned, and cared for her mother. Yet, whenever she had a free moment, she picked up her charcoal. One afternoon, Adeleke sat up and watched her sketching on the back of an old calendar. "Can I see?" he asked. Amara hesitated, then handed him the paper. It was a drawing of a child laughing. The detail was incredible. "Amara, this is beautiful," Adeleke said, genuinely amazed. "You have a gift." "Gift does not put food on the table," she said with a sad smile. "I dream of opening a gallery, but dreams are for rich people." Adeleke looked at her. He had grown up surrounded by women like Simi, who had everything but appreciated nothing. Here was Amara, who had nothing but saw beauty in everything. For the first time in his life, he didn't feel the weight of his crown. He felt peace. He liked being just Adeleke. He liked the sound of her voice. And he knew, with a sinking feeling, that he didn't want to leave. A week had passed, and the bond between Adeleke and Amara had grown strong. But secrets are hard to keep in a Lagos compound where walls are thin and neighbors have long ears. One afternoon, a loud banging on the front door startled them. "Amara, open this door." "Oh, it's me, Chidinma." Amara's eyes widened in panic. Chidinma was her best friend, but she had a mouth like a radio. If she saw a strange man in the house, the whole street would know by evening. "Quick, hide behind the curtain," Amara whispered to Adeleke. She opened the door just a crack, but Chidinma pushed her way in, carrying a bag of roasted corn. "Ah, Amara, why are you locking door like you are hiding gold?" Chidinma laughed, sitting heavily on the sofa where Adeleke had just been sitting. "I was sleeping," Amara lied, standing nervously in front of the bedroom curtain. "Sleeping by 2 p.m.? Laziness is catching you, oh," Chidinma teased. Suddenly, Adeleke suppressed a cough behind the curtain. The sound was faint, but audible. Chidinma froze, a cob of corn halfway to her mouth. "Who was that? Is Mama back from the clinic?" "Yes," Amara said quickly. "She is resting. Please, Chi, let us talk outside so we don't wake her." She practically pushed her confused friend out of the door. When Amara returned, she was shaking. Adeleke stepped out from behind the curtain. He looked at her, then at the sketchbook she had left on the table. He picked it up. On the open page was a new drawing, a portrait of him sleeping. She had captured not just his face, but a look of peace he had never seen in himself before. "You see me better than I see myself," Adeleke said softly. Amara looked down, shy. "I just drew what I saw." Adeleke sighed, the weight of his lie pressing on his chest. He couldn't deceive her anymore. She deserved the truth. Amara, sit down, he said seriously. Mama Amara walked in from the backyard at that moment, sensing the tension. My name is not Leke, he began, his voice steady but low. My name is Prince Adeleke Adeyemi. My father is King Tund Adeyemi of Lagos Island. The room went deadly silent. Amara gasped, covering her mouth with her hands. Mama Amara dropped the plastic bowl she was holding. It clattered loudly on the floor. Prince. Mama Amara whispered, her eyes wide with fear. In this slum? Mogby, trouble has finished us. If anything happens to you here, the king will burn this place down. No one will burn anything, Mama, Adeleke said, stepping forward to hold the old woman's trembling hands. But you are right about the danger. The people who attacked me are still out there. If they find out I am here, they will hurt you to get to me. He looked at Amara. Tears were gathering in her eyes. The simple Leke she was falling for was actually a man from a world she could never touch. I have to leave tonight, Adeleke said, his voice full of regret. I must go back to the palace and face them. It is the only way to keep you safe. Will you come back? Amara asked, her voice breaking. Adeleke held her gaze. I promise. On my life, I will come back for you. The taxi dropped Adeleke a few streets away from the palace gates, so the driver wouldn't ask questions. It was past midnight when he finally walked up to the heavy iron entrance. The guards, who had been sleeping on duty, jumped up in shock when they saw the prince standing there, dirty and bandaged. Prince Adeleke. Open the gate. Fast, the head guard shouted, scrambling for the remote. As Adeleke walked up the long driveway, the front doors of the mansion flew open. King Tund ran out, wearing his pajamas, followed closely by Queen Ronk. Adeleke. The king grabbed his son in a tight hug. We thought you were dead. The police found your car abandoned days ago. Queen Ronk was crying, but she quickly wiped her eyes and looked him over. Look at you. You look like a beggar. Where have you been? Before Adeleke could answer, a sleek car pulled up the driveway. Simi stepped out, looking annoyed rather than relieved. She was wearing a silk robe and slippers. Babe, really? Simi sighed, looking at his dirty shirt with disgust. I have been here with your parents for 3 days. Do you know how embarrassing this is? People are saying you ran away because of the wedding. Adeleke ignored her and looked at his father. I was attacked, Baba. They shot me. The king's face hardened. Who did this? We will find them. Later that morning, the commissioner of police arrived. Adeleke sat in the grand living room, his arm freshly dressed by the royal doctor. He knew he had to tread carefully. Your Highness, the commissioner asked, pen poised over his notebook. Where were you hiding for these past days? Who helped you? Adeleke thought of Amara and her mother. If he mentioned their names, the press would descend on their house like vultures, and the attackers might finish the job. I hid in an uncompleted building near Ape. Adeleke lied smoothly. I was alone. I treated the wound myself and walked back to the road last night. The queen looked suspicious, but she didn't say anything in front of the police. We must increase security, she announced. From now on, guards will be with Adeleke at all times. No one goes in or out without my permission. Life in the palace returned to normal, but for Adeleke, everything felt wrong. The air-conditioned room felt too cold compared to the warmth of Amara's house. The rich food tasted like sawdust. He missed the sound of Amara's laughter and the scratch of her charcoal on paper. He tried to sneak out the next day to go to Ajij, but 2 burly guards blocked his bedroom door. Sorry, sir, one said, bowing his head. The queen said you are not to leave the compound. Adeleke walked to his window and looked out at the manicured garden. He was back in his golden cage, but his heart was still in the slum with the girl who saved his life. 2 weeks of house arrest in the palace felt like a prison sentence to Adeleke. He moved through the motions, but his mind was constantly in Ajij. The queen, sensing his restlessness and the growing tension, decided to speed things up. She arranged a private family dinner with Simi to seal the engagement once and for all. The dining room was quiet, except for the sound of silver cutlery hitting fine china. Simi was in high spirits, ignoring the tension. She was busy showing the Queen pictures on her phone. "Mummy, I was thinking of a destination wedding in Dubai," Simi said, smiling. "Lagos is too stressful. Besides, I don't want any local people gate-crashing our event." Queen Ronk smiled, pleased. "Excellent idea, Simi. We can fly the VIP guests out. It will be the wedding of the decade. We shall set the date for the last Saturday of next month." Adeleke stopped eating. The yam stuck in his throat. He looked at his father, who was eating silently, and then at his mother, who was planning his life like a business transaction. He looked at Simi, who only cared about showing off. "No," Adeleke said. The word was soft, but it cut through the room like a knife. Simi laughed nervously. "Babe, what do you mean no?" "Don't be funny." "I mean there will be no wedding," Adeleke said, his voice rising. He pushed his chair back and stood up. "I cannot marry you, Simi. We are not the same. You care about status and money. I want something real." Queen Ronk dropped her fork. Her eyes flashed with anger. "Sit down, Adeleke. Stop this nonsense immediately." "It is not nonsense, Mother," Adeleke replied, his voice shaking with emotion. "When I was out there, bleeding and dying, my title did not save me. My money did not save me. It was a girl with nothing in her pocket but kindness in her heart. I have found the woman I want to marry, and it is not Simi." Simi stood up slowly, her face turning red with humiliation. "You are rejecting me? Simi Balogun? For who? Some gutter girl who picked you off the street?" She grabbed her expensive clutch bag, her hands trembling with rage. "You will regret this, Adeleke. Nobody humiliates me and gets away with it." She stormed out of the dining room, her heels clicking angrily on the marble floor until the front door slammed shut. The room fell into a deadly silence. Queen Ronk's face was stone cold. She looked at her son with pure disappointment. "You are foolish," she hissed. "You want to throw away a multi-billion naira merger for a pauper? God forbid." She stood up and pointed a manicured finger at his face. "Hear me now. You will never see that girl again. If you try to leave this house, I will have the guards lock you in your room. You are a prince, act like one." Adeleke looked at his father for support, but the king just looked down at his plate, looking tired and defeated. Adeleke realized he was on his own. The war had begun. Simi drove her red convertible furiously away from the palace, her hands shaking on the steering wheel. The humiliation burned her chest. To be rejected for nobody? It was impossible. She parked on a quiet street in Oberland, a sharp contrast to her usual high-class hangouts. She picked up her phone and dialed a number she had saved for emergencies. "Razor, meet me at the usual spot."
Now.
10 minutes later, a rough-looking man with red eyes and a toothpick in his mouth leaned against her car window. Razor was a known thug who did dirty jobs for politicians and rich kids who wanted problems to disappear. Simi lowered the window just an inch. She didn't want his smell in her car. She slid a brown envelope through the gap. Inside was a stack of cash and a printed photo of Amara. "That is the girl," Simi said, her voice cold. "She lives in a jeej. I don't want her scared. I want her gone. Permanently." Razor peered at the photo and grinned, revealing a gold tooth. "Fine girl. But fine face no day save person from bullet. Consider it done, madam. But the balance must be complete by tomorrow." "Just do the job," Simi snapped, winding up the window and speeding off. The next evening in Ajij, the sun was beginning to set. Amara was walking home from the market, balancing a small bag of peppers and onions on her hip. She was tired but hopeful. She had sold 2 sketches near the bus stop, enough to buy food for another 2 days. Her mind drifted to Leke. It had been weeks, and he hadn't returned. Maybe he had forgotten her. Maybe he was just a prince, and she was just a story he would tell his rich friends. As she turned the corner toward her street, a battered white Danfo bus slowed down beside her. The sliding door flew open violently. Before Amara could react, 2 strong men jumped out. "That is her. Grab her," one shouted. Amara tried to run, dropping her peppers, but they were too fast. One man clamped a hand over her mouth to stifle her scream, while the other grabbed her waist and threw her into the bus. "Mummy," she tried to scream, but the sound was muffled. The door slammed shut, and the bus sped off, leaving nothing but a cloud of exhaust smoke and spilled onions on the dusty road. Back at the house, Mama Amara sat by the door, watching the dark street. It was past 8 p.m. Amara was never late. Her chest felt tight, a mother's instinct screaming that something was wrong. Chidinma ran into the compound, breathless. "Mama, I saw Amara's slippers on the road. And the pepper she bought, they are scattered on the ground." Mama Amara stood up, her legs shaking uncontrollably. She grabbed her head with both hands. "Magbi, they have taken her. The prince's enemies have found us." She collapsed onto the floor, wailing into the night. The news didn't come through a phone call. It came through a desperate scream at the palace gate the next morning. Chidinma, fueled by panic and loyalty, had used her last transport money to take a bike all the way to Victoria Island. She was banging on the heavy black iron gate, shouting at the armed guards. "Let me see the prince. They have taken her. Open this gate." Adeleke heard the commotion from his balcony. He recognized the voice immediately. He ran down the marble stairs, skipping steps, ignoring his mother who was sipping tea in the living room. He sprinted across the compound and ordered the confused guards to open the pedestrian gate. Chidinma fell at his feet, dusty and crying. "Prince, they took Amara. Since yesterday evening, she has not returned. We found her slippers on the road." Blood turned to ice. He remembered the look in Simi's eyes at the dinner table, the cold promise of revenge. He connected the dots instantly. "Where are you going?" Queen Ronk shouted from the doorway, having followed him out. "Adeleke, get back inside." Adeleke turned to his mother, his face dark with a rage she had never seen before. "The woman you want me to marry has kidnapped Amara. If Amara dies, I will never forgive you." The queen froze, her teacup rattling in the saucer. Adeleke didn't wait. He brought out his phone and dialed the commissioner of police directly. "Commissioner, this is Prince Adeleke. Track Simi Balagan's phone location immediately. It is a matter of life and death." Within an hour, the police had a location. Simi's phone was pinging off a tower near the Apapa docks, an area full of abandoned warehouses and shipping containers. Adeleke insisted on going with the convoy. When they arrived, the warehouse looked empty, surrounded by tall weeds. The police team moved silently, guns drawn. Adeleke's heart was pounding in his ears. They approached a rusted side door. Inside, under the dim light of a single bulb, Amara was tied to a plastic chair. Her face was swollen, and she looked terrified. Razor was pacing around her, holding a cigarette, while Simi stood in the corner, arms crossed, looking impatient. "Why is she still breathing?" Simi snapped at Razor. "I paid you to finish the job. I have a flight to catch." "Relax, madam. We are waiting for night to fall properly so we can dispose of the body," Razor replied casually. Adeleke signaled the police.
"Now."
The metal doors crashed open. "Police. Nobody move." Razor tried to reach for his gun on the table, but the officers were faster. They tackled him to the dirty floor. Simi screamed, realizing it was over. She tried to run toward the back exit, but two officers blocked her path, clicking handcuffs onto her wrists. Adeleke didn't look at them. He ran straight to the chair. He used a pocket knife to cut the ropes binding Amara's hands. "Leke," she whispered, her voice cracking, her eyes struggling to focus. "I am here, Amara. I am here," he said, his voice thick with emotion. He pulled her into his arms, burying his face in her neck. She was shaking violently, but she was alive. Adeleke looked up at Simi, who was being dragged away by the police. The game was over. He had his queen and... The police convoy didn't stop at the station. On Adeleke's orders, they drove straight to the palace. It was past midnight when they walked into the grand living room. Amara was still trembling, holding onto Adeleke's jacket which was draped over her shoulders. King Tund and Queen Ronk were waiting, having been alerted by the commissioner. When the king saw Amara's bruised face and heard the full report, how Simi, the daughter of his business partner, had ordered a hit on an innocent girl. He was silent for a long time. He looked at Queen Ronk, who sat on the sofa, pale and shaking with shame. "We almost lost our son, and now we almost destroyed an innocent life," King Tun said, his voice heavy with regret. "And for what? Money? Influence?" He stood up and walked over to Amara. He bowed his head slightly, a gesture that shocked the servants. "My daughter, I am sorry. A woman who saves a life is worth more than all the ships in my fleet. You are welcome in this house." Queen Ronk stood up slowly. All her pride was gone. She looked at the girl she had called a pauper. "I was blind," she whispered, tears rolling down her face. "Please forgive me." 6 months later, the palace grounds were transformed. It was the wedding of the decade, but it wasn't the stiff, business-like event the queen had originally planned. It was a vibrant explosion of culture. The venue was split into two worlds that had blended perfectly. On one side sat the dignitaries and business tycoons in their flowing agbada. On the other side, in the front row, sat Mama Amara, looking regal in a massive purple galley, surrounded by neighbors from Ajij. Chidinma, dressed as the chief bridesmaid, was dancing to the talking drummers before the music even started properly. When Amara stepped out, the crowd gasped. She wasn't wearing a borrowed style. She wore a dress she had designed herself, embroidered with patterns that told the story of her survival. Adeleke stood at the altar, watching her walk toward him. He didn't see a village girl or a princess. He saw his savior. When he lifted her veil, he whispered, "My true queen." The reception was a festival. There was no segregation. The rich ate from the same pot as the poor. King Tun danced with Mama Amara, laughing as she taught him the latest steps from the mainland. But the story didn't end at the party. A few weeks later, in the heart of Ajij, a new building was opened. It wasn't a bank or a hotel. The sign above the door read, "The Amara Art Foundation." Amara stood by the door, cutting the ribbon. Inside, children from the slum were sitting at easels, holding charcoal and paintbrushes, drawing their dreams just like she once did. Adeleke stood beside her, watching her smile. She had married a prince, but she had never forgot who she was. She was Amara, the girl who found beauty in the dust, and now she was helping others find it too. And that's the end of today's tale. We hope it brought a smile, a thought, or a little bit of magic to your day. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, subscribe to Tales Vibe for more weekly tales, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We love hearing from our story family all around the world. Until next time, keep your heart open, your imagination alive, and remember, laughter and lessons always go hand in hand. See you in the next story.